artists. We were trying to document a project that was coming to completion. The inspiration for this came when 9/11 happened. I remember woke up early and was working on something on my computer that I didn't finish the night before, and the news pops said, "This is happening." And then the phone starts ringing. My daughter woke her up, she picked it up. It was one of her girlfriends calling to tell her what had just happened. And we're watching this kind of like horrified, not knowing what to do. And I know my son's asleep, so I go in the room at one point and I turn on the TV because I know he needs to be part of witnessing what's happening. And he's like waking up and looking at me and looking at the TV and looking at me and looking at the TV. Building number 2 goes down. When 2001 happened, I was obsessed with it. There was so much imagery, you couldn't get away from it. And at one point I had a big TV screen back here and I was, watching movies while I'm, sitting here going through magazines and scanning into the computer. So what's ended up happening is I made a collage per year. It shows visual imagery that we were subjected to as we were standing in line at the market, as we were driving down the street seeing billboards, as we turned on the TV and the news programs were playing. It's whether we wanted to see this or not, we saw it. I was collecting these pieces based on how I was reacting emotionally. And I feel like if I'm having a reaction, other people are having reactions too.
She was going by her feelings. From being afraid of one thing, we jumped to being afraid of another thing. And I told her what the movie, where it was, All President's Men, said, follow the money and find out who is benefiting from all this, which she did. And she stuck to it for 10 years. To me, she's now perhaps one of the most unusual activists that we had. And since images say 1,000 words, she's perhaps one of the most effective ones in that sense, to allow us to see how we have been manipulated by corporate media during all these years.
I started making these databases and then started cross-referencing these databases, and then ended up making another panel that I call the grid. The grid. I was really overwhelmed with the amount of data that was being collected through the research I was doing that were setting off fire alarms as I'm scanning these images into the computer. I would start printing out the databases of the information that I was collecting, and started, by writing, had papers here that said 2000 to 2012, and started making, just pieces of paper that had information on it, and then it would expand out depending on the table, depending on, was it the banking industry, the military-industrial complex industry, the political industry, and then it was like, in my mind I could walk in here and see strings of how things were attaching. You've got the banks, the think tanks, the political players that were involved, more think tanks. This is about the Mideast, and then the center part, which is this part here, is what happened to us. This is unemployment, CPI, Consumer Price Index. Gas prices were skyrocketing. These blue lines represent new home mortgages in the millions. The purple lines represent refinances in the millions. The bluer lines represent homes that were first tagged as improvements. These gray buildings in particular represent what was going on that we weren't paying attention to, and that's military spending in Iraq and Afghanistan, specifically those two countries, in the billions. This represents think tanks and foundations. This represents think tanks and foundations and who funds them. And this in particular is family foundations that fund these think tanks. These are political players that were within the Bush administration. Not necessarily Clinton, he came in before, but he's real responsible. Being in command, he is the one that worked with the Federal Reserve and Goldman Sachs to deregulate government control of a lot of businesses. Thinking that they would act responsibly, it didn't happen. And we got hurt. It doesn't feel right. There's definitely, and so there's connections between all these political players. I did not intend to target a single one, but when I saw the connections, it's like, no, they have to come out. I'm going to put their picture in so you can remember their faces. It's our history. I want people to remember. One of the reasons in the beginning was to let people know not to feel guilty. A lot of things happened that we feel like we did something wrong. We weren't in control.
What this work does, to me, is to help us raise our consciousness. What the media is doing, or have been doing, is to lower it. So we are people are very easy to manipulate when they are in a panic.
This is inspiring. Talking to people here all week long and hearing the reactions that people had to this, they want to do something. And it also stops them and say, damn, I haven't really done anything. What have I done? Our culture is part of this. We've been fed along and we were kind of part of this machine, but I think what we're starting to do is be able to see that we can actually access that machine from outside, and we can start to actually make a difference and build that machine in a different way. So this culture definitely does. They do respond to this because this is the world we don't want anymore. We don't want to play in this economic system that steals. It creates war again, and it does all of these things that we know and that we come out here to not fight against, but to celebrate the other side of that.
Gaye Lub is a very strange name. It really is my name. Gaye means happy and Lub means love in Russian. This belongs to the people who live in America. So if you want to take this a step farther, be my guest. Open source, copyleft.